Hello and welcome to Leadership PRN. This is the Dalhousie Faculty of Medicine podcast for leaders both new and established. I'm Dr. Lara Hazelton. I'm a professor in the Department of Psychiatry and an educator with an interest in leadership education. Today, I'm really excited to have someone with us as a guest who I've known for a number of years, Dr. Connie LeBlanc. Hi, Connie.
Hi, how are you, Lara?
I'm
Thanks
good.
for having me.
It's great to have you here. I've been looking forward to this because I think you have so many interesting insights to share about leadership, and I think our listeners will really be interested in hearing what you have to say.
Thanks.
So tell us about yourself and your experiences in leadership.
You know, Lara, when I was in medical school, I was just struggling to pay my bills. And so it didn't ever occur to me that I would be a leader or that those would be roles I'd be welcome to. And so sometimes we don't think of ourselves as leaders when, in fact, that potential may lie within us. And it's not until I started working and was invited to be clerkship director and then postgrad director and then program director that I got an interest in leadership and in medical education and realized that education and leadership were going to be kind of important parts of my career.
So your first leadership position was clerkship director.
Was just for emergency medicine. Just a tiny role, but it gave me a taste and an appetite for something a little more.
Do you remember who invited you to take that on?
I do. Doug Sinclair invited me to take that on and made it seem like it was, like a privilege. It wasn't a paid role. It was just a thing I had the opportunity to do. So I grabbed it and ran with it.
And so that was your first taste of it, and then you said program director as well?
Yep. Then I was postgrad director, and then I was invited to apply to be program director at Doug's suggestion as well. And while I was program director, I decided I should pursue a master's in medical education and really enjoyed that work. It made me very busy. My children were young. I was program director. I was working in the emergency department. So it was a lot, but it was a good lot.
And tell us about the role that you have now.
Now I'm president and CEO of the Association of Faculties of Medicine of Canada. And the AFMC is the voice of academic medicine for Canada. Our board of directors includes the 18 deans of medical schools in Canada with 5 public members. And our 3 pillars of activity are education, research, and social accountability. And so kind of all that pertains to medical education, academia, research in medicine and in health, and social accountability as it applies to our contract with society as physicians is our role from a national perspective.
So what type of interactions would physicians have with the AFMC?
Well, that's a great question. Some have none. But most have some. We oversee undergraduate accreditation, CPD accreditation. Many of our leadership, people with leadership positions in decanal roles have strong leadership positions at the AFMC. So I think about undergrad deans, postgrad deans, clerkship directors, student affairs deans. Of course, the deans are very involved, but a lot of people are involved. Other facets of our work within the social accountability pillar include planetary health. And so people with a niche interest in that area, well-being in medicine, so the culture of academic medicine, kind of how we torture each other and perpetrate badness, but how we can turn that around and lead for wellness and promote activities and processes and procedures that help physicians remain well. So people with wellness and interest, there's a place for them at the AFMC. Other things we do within that pillar are equity, diversity, inclusion, and anti-racism. There's an Indigenous committee. There are a lot of things. I would like to start a committee on the social determinants of health, but I've been pretty busy. I just started a year ago, and I'd never been CEO, so I had some CEO learning to do. But I'd like to start one on the social determinants of health. I think it'd be cool to have one on rural medicine and how it's different, like in a sparkly way, but in a difficult way as well.
And, it's interesting. You mentioned about accreditation, and that's something that some of our listeners might be familiar with and others might not. Anybody who's worked in academic medicine has heard about accreditation. Do you want to speak a little bit about accreditation and why the AFMC is such an important part of that process?
Well, actually, the AFMC is the secretariat for the Committee for Accreditation for CACMS. We contribute to that with the Canadian Medical Association, and both financially and from a participation and oversight perspective. It has to be at arm's length because we can't be seen to impact or favor or have access to that documentation. But we do serve as secretariat for that group. And they oversee how physicians are trained and how we really strive to meet the needs of society. And so our accreditation processes happen every 8 years, and a group of people have a massive standardized document that has to be filled out ahead of time. They review it, and then they come and boots on the ground have a look to see if, in fact, what was written is reflected in the practices and processes that are happening. It used to be that it was really a snapshot. The accreditors would come, they'd take a little Polaroid shot, and that was it. We've really moved into more of a CQI process where we look at how things are evolving, where are the areas of growth, and what are the things that are kind of shiny at that university, and try to share best practices with them to reflect on the excellent work that they're doing. When you've seen one medical school, you've kind of seen one medical school, and they're all different. They have areas of strength and, of less strength, like everything else.
One of the other things that you mentioned was about the different groups that intersect around the AFMC. It is sort of a national nidus, I guess you could say, maybe, or hub for a lot of these different areas. Is that a fair way to describe it?
Yeah, I mean, in our 3 pillars, there are a lot of intersections. So, distributed medical education is a group. We're very likely going to start a physician assistance group. There are 4 or 5 programs across Canada, all of them housed in Faculties of Medicine. So, we welcome people to the table and work with them and share our tools and resources with them.
What's something that has been surprising for you in the role?
What's been surprising? Well, it's a whole lot of work, but that didn't surprise me too much. I'm surprised at how we're able to run it virtually. It's 100% virtual, so there's no bricks and mortar. And, some of the challenges of running a virtual organization are real. The flip side of that, however, is that I'm able to recruit the very best talent from everywhere in the country. I'm also able to recruit people who would otherwise not be able to be involved. So if they had to come to a bricks and mortar building 3, 4, 5 times a year, say a single parent from the Northwest Territories who's a practicing physician would never have access. We wouldn't have access to their expertise or their perspective. And so it does allow us to achieve breadth that we otherwise wouldn't. And I think in the balance, that's a positive thing. That's been a bit of a learning curve for me. Not only had I never been CEO, but I'd never worked in a 100% virtual setting. I'm an emergency physician, and during COVID, I still went to work.
What are some of the things that you think are really fun about the job?
Oh, the fun thing, I think the programs that we have are fun. I love interacting with our board of directors. They're wise, they're engaged, they're really committed to the right thing, to providing top-notch education to serve our communities, meeting our contract with society. The team with the AFMC are fantastic. And I've worked really hard over the last year to make our organization a little bit more holocratic, so flatten out the top and bring some people up onto our leadership team and kind of remove some of the hierarchies. And watching people grow into roles that they didn't maybe believe that they were suitable for or able to do has been great. So supporting the growth of an organization, working on trust has been a big focus. So, and keeping them together as a a team in a virtual environment has been, those have all been kind of fun things and rewarding. And we've seen that move in our feedback survey, that people really feel that there's a difference, which in 1 year, I was pretty proud of that.
That's great. That's nice to accomplish something like that. When you think about your previous roles, because I know that you've had leadership roles here at Dalhousie, I used to report to you when you were the CPD dean at Dalhousie. How is it different being on an organization that's national versus something that's institutional, like the roles that you've had at Dal?
That's a great question. You know, at Dal, I had been here when I started that job in 2010 for 20 years. So I knew how things worked. I knew all of the stakeholders. It was a job that I could easily move into a feeling that I could master it. At the AFMC, it's not really like that. There's so many organizations and stakeholders that relating to them and figuring out what their priorities are, how they overlap, how to stay in your lane. Those were the big things. So we have really close ties with the Royal College of Physicians and Surgeons of Canada, with the College of Family Physicians of Canada, with the Medical Council of Canada, with the Canadian Medical Association, with just so many groups, and then international groups as well. And so really understanding deeply how organizations like Black Physicians of Canada, IPAC, all of these kind of national organizations, and then international organizations such as Toward Unity for Health, which is a social accountability and international organization for that. So that's been a big learning curve for me, and maintaining relationships with stakeholders for important work that allows us to share internationally as well as nationally has been a big growth curve for me.
So there may be other people listening to this podcast who are interested in doing national collaborative work. What type of advice would you have for people who want to branch out beyond the work they're doing at their particular institution?
I think the first thing is just that actually believe that you can do it. People want you at the table. It's kind of like when you're going to play the piano in public and you're very nervous. You have to remember that the people who came to hear you came to hear something awesome. They didn't come to hear your nerves. And so kind of believing that you can actually do that, this is attainable for you, and then doing things that are interesting to you. All of these leadership jobs are more than they're advertised as an FTE position, a full-time equivalent. And so they're going to take more of your time. They are going to eat into some of your spare time, some of your exercise time, family time, clinical time. And so for every opportunity, there's an opportunity cost. And recognizing that so you don't kind of trash your entire life, but following the things that interest you so that if it does take from something else, you don't feel resentful about it, but it feels like an area for growth and that it's fun and engaging work. I would say that for your work has to have three things. You have to make a whole lot of money, or it has to be very rewarding for you, or it has to be super important. And if you get two of those things, that's really good. And if you get three, jackpot.
And you mentioned piano. I know that you are a really skilled piano player.
I love to play the piano. I still play every day. I'm not terribly good. I'm not super, super good, but I really enjoy it.
I think you're a pretty good piano player from what I recall. So how have you balanced that then? I'm glad to hear you're still playing the piano. How about the other things? How have you managed that with your challenging, national role that you have?
Yeah, my busiest time was actually when my kids were in school because they had a bunch of activities and I was kind of part driver, part parent, part doctor, part administrator. And those are a lot of parts. And then I threw in a master's in medical education. Once they were kind of out of the house and doing their own thing, my husband is a caterer. So during COVID, didn't have a lot of work. And so he's very supportive in making sure that I can have time to do other things by doing almost everything around the house, to be honest. I'm a person who, I walk to work, so my car basically serves as a bird toilet in my driveway. I fill it with gas every 10 weeks. So I'm able to get kind of some fitness and things in. I started practicing karate before COVID and just got my second degree black belt.
Oh, great.
I'm pretty chuffed about that in my 60s. So, I think it's a matter of picking a few things that you think you can manage and that are a little more flexible, that will go with your lifestyle. I wouldn't be able to deny that there's a lot of travel with this job. And so I'm on the road a lot, but we really optimize. Careful planning helps you make sure that when you are home, you're super home, really home. And also my husband is able to come with me on some trips. And so trips where I'm not going to be busy all day and all evening. Some of them are just, it wouldn't be positive for him to come along. He'd just be on his own. But others where there's a little bit more fun, he'll come along, and that makes it kind of nice.
So if you could go back to talk to that early career physician who's being offered the clerkship director position in their department, what advice would you have for people just starting out?
Well, I was starting out and I didn't realize how willing people would be to help you out. And I always felt like a little bit of an imposter. Well, they must have asked me because everybody else said no, or I think you should just believe that you can do it. And be willing to ask people for help. People are generally really helpful. And I don't think there are a lot of people who would just say, well, no, you're just going to have to figure that out. That's not a thing we hear a lot in medicine. So jump in with both feet and get some help.
What would you say that you're most proud of that you've accomplished so far in your career?
In my career, I was going to say my kids. The fact that they're both independent adults is pretty good from a career perspective. In my career, I think my ability to keep my values of being patient-focused and being community-focused are probably what I'm the most proud of. And that's at the center of everything I do. I just think if we're doing academic work, research, patient care, education, if our patients aren't at the center of that work, then we've lost our direction and we have to kind of back up and recalibrate. And for me, I still practice every Tuesday, and in the emergency department, I no longer do nights, but I enjoy seeing patients. I love keeping the patient at the center of the work that I do, and I think it's really grounding for me to be in the emergency department, to see the chaos that it's become firsthand, and yet to remember that you can have that little intimate moment of solitude with your patient and provide top-notch care and address their needs, and also make changes from that work that can impact an entire community or a medical school or a country or a program. I just think, our staying grounded and keeping the patient and the community at the center of our work I think that's really, really important, and I'm proud that I've been able to do that.
What do you see as the next step in your career? I know you'll be in the AFMC role for a number of additional years. So have you thought about what comes next?
Probably I will stop doing emergency medicine. I don't want to be that person. I don't think any of us want to be that person. So at some point, I will stop doing emergency medicine. I'm not ready to do that yet, as you just heard. But I would consider doing some consultant roles and stuff like that. I'm getting pretty old to be working as much as I am. I really still enjoy it, and I think I have something to offer, even though I am, kind of in my beyond 35th year of practice. So, as long as people have me, I'll remain involved.
Thanks so much for talking with me today, Connie. It's been really nice to catch up. It's been a while since I've spoken with you, and congratulations on the role and all the things that you're accomplishing with the AFMC.
Thanks. For our listeners, we probably want to remember that the International Congress in Academic Medicine is in Halifax, April 3rd to 6th at our convention center. It is our national congress, and last year we had 1,600 people in Vancouver. So a lot of educators, a lot of leaders, all the deans will be there, and we'd like to see all of you too.
ICAM is a great conference. I've been there a number of times. It used to be called CCME, so some of our listeners might be familiar with it more as CCME, the Canadian Conference on Medical Education. And I think really anybody with an interest in academic medicine could attend, couldn't they?
Oh, they could. There's something for everyone. It's based on our 3 pillars. So it's based on education, research and health, and social accountability. And it's in Halifax, April 3rd to 6th, 2025. You can register on site. We're welcoming everyone. We have 4 big keynotes, one with André Picard, one with Zita Cobb. One is the Gairdner Lectures, and 1 in 4 Gairdners goes on to get a Nobel Prize in Research and Health. And the final one is with Mohammed Mamdani speaking about artificial intelligence and should we be afraid or should we optimize it? Should we embrace it? Lots of workshops, lots of fun things. All the people in academia will be there and a lot of leaders. So I think it's a good place to be.
Great networking opportunities, and everybody's very approachable, I find, as well. So it's a great chance for people to meet people and dip a toe into academic medicine if they haven't already done so.
Exactly.
And that's another episode of Leadership PRN. If you have a topic you'd like to hear covered or someone you'd like me to speak to, feel free to reach out to me at lara.hazelton@dal.ca or lara.hazelton@nshealth.ca. Until next time, take care.